All right, readers, we are ready for chapter 2, and I want you to remember, as really good readers, we always go back and think about what happened in the chapter before. So in chapter 1, we found out that Stanley had just gotten flattened overnight by a big bulletin board, and now he's flat. Mom took him to the doctor, and she's going to go get his clothes tailored. So, chapter 2, being flat. When Stanley got used to being flat, he enjoyed it. He could go in and out of rooms, even when the door was closed, just by laying down and sliding through the crack at the bottom. Mr. and Miss Lambchop said it was silly, but they were quite proud of him. Arthur got jealous and tried to slide under a door, but he just banged his head. Being flat could also be helpful, Stanley found. He was taking a walk with Miss Lambchop one afternoon when her favorite ring fell from her finger. The ring rolled across the sidewalk and down between the bars of a grating that covered a deep, dark shaft. Miss Lambchop began to cry. "I have an idea," Stanley said. He took the laces out of his shoes and an extra pair out of his pocket and tied them all together to make one long lace. Then he tied one end of that to the back of his belt and gave the other end to his mother. "Lower me," he said, "and I will look for the ring." "Thank you, Stanley," Miss Lambchop said. She lowered him between the bars and moved him carefully up and down from side to side so that he could search the whole floor of the shaft. 2 policemen came by and stared at Miss Lambchop as she stood holding the long lace that ran down through the grating. She pretended not to notice them. "What's the matter, lady?" the first policeman asked. "Is your yo-yo stuck?" "I'm not playing with a yo-yo," Miss Lambchop said sharply. "My son is at the other end of this lace, if you must know." I can see Stanley in the gutter searching for the ring. "Get the net, Harry," the second police officer said. "We have caught a cuckoo. Just then, down the shaft, Stanley cried out, "Hooray!" Miss Lambchop pulled him up and saw that he had the ring. "Good for you, Stanley," she said. Then she turned angrily to the policeman. "A cuckoo indeed," she said. "Shame." The policeman apologized. "We didn't get it, lady," they said. "We have been hasty. We see that now." "People should think twice before they go making rude remarks," said Miss Lambchop, "and then not make them at all." So you can see there Stanley is coming up from the gutter with the ring in his hand. The policeman realized that was a good rule and they should try to remember it. One day, Stanley got a letter from his friend Thomas Anthony Jeffrey, whose family had recently moved to California. A school vacation was about to begin, and Stanley was invited to spend it with the Jeffreys. "Oh boy," Stanley said, "I would love to go." Mr. Lambchop sighed. "A round-trip train or plane ticket to California is very expensive," he said. "I'll have to think of some cheaper way." When Mr. Lambchop came home from the office that evening, he brought with him an enormous brown paper envelope. Think to yourself, what do you think he's going to do with this envelope? "Now then, Stanley," he said, "try this for a size." The envelope fit Stanley very well. There was even room left over, Miss Lambchop discovered, for an egg salad sandwich made with thin bread and a toothbrush with case filled with milk. They had to put a great many stamps on the envelope to pay for both airmail and insurance. But it was still much less expensive than a train or airplane ticket to California. The next day, Mr. and Miss Lambchop slid Stanley into the envelope along with the egg salad sandwich and the toothbrush case full of milk, and mailed him from the box on the corner. envelope had to be folded to fit through the slot, but Stanley was a limber boy, and inside the box he straightened right up again. Miss Lambchop was nervous because Stanley had never been away from home alone before. She rapped on the box. "Can you hear me, dear?" she called. "Are you all right?" Stanley's voice came quite clearly. "I'm fine. Can I eat my sandwich now?" "Wait an hour, and try not to get overheated, dear," Miss Lambchop said. Then she and Mr. Lambchop cried out, "Goodbye, goodbye," and went home. Stanley had a fine time in California. When the visit was over, the Jeffreys returned him in a beautiful white envelope they had made themselves. It had red and blue markings to show that it was in airmail, and Thomas Jeffrey had lettered it "valuable" and "fragile" and "this end up" on both sides. Back home, Stanley told his family that he had been handled so carefully he never felt a single bump. So Mr. Lambchop said it proved that jet planes were wonderful, and so was the Postal Service, that this was a great age in which to live. Stanley thought so too. That is the end of chapter 2.